Senator Alexander is a great American, has always been a great American, whether as governor, as Secretary of Education, as a senator. He's always put the interests of the country ahead of himself and ahead of Tennessee even. He is a great senator, making a great move. This will be over by tonight, I believe, and that's good because earlier this morning, Singapore closed its borders to all Chinese travelers. Singapore close its borders to all Chinese travelers. Before I go to the impeachment sham, because that's not a story because we know how it's going to end, let's go to the epidemic. From the New York Times, coronavirus live updates. State Department tells Americans, do not go to China. New York Times, more than 200 people have died, 9,800 infections. Bigger than SARS now. Facebook says it will stop to act to stop coronavirus-related misinformation. The first 2 confirmed cases have come to Britain. China is bringing home Wuhan residents from foreign countries. That's odd. And after a false alarm on a cruise ship, Italy had to report its first case anyway, and the WHO declares what we already knew. The coronavirus is a global health emergency. This from the Wall Street Journal. The World Health Organization declared the coronavirus outbreak a public health emergency of international concern Thursday as the first person-to-person transmission of the virus was reported in the United States. That happened in Chicago, where the husband of a wife who had returned with the virus from Wuhan got it from her. They're both in isolation. There are 6 cases in the United States. We don't have a problem here yet. We're on alert. But, boy, does China have a problem. They are screwed. And I do not know. My biggest fear is that it gets to Africa or to a refugee camp where there simply is not the medical staff necessary to contain or any possibility of isolating people. If it gets into the great slums of the world in India, or in some of the tenements of China, there's just going to be no stopping it. 2 new cases of coronavirus in the United Kingdom. I've been reading the book, The Great Influenza, and it's scary what happened in 1918 and 1920. I don't think we're going to have that because we have better science, we have better techniques to identify, quarantine, better ability to rapidly develop antivirals, better ability to rapidly develop a vaccine, but some places are going to get the living daylights kicked out of them, China being number 1. I note a story as well from 2 days ago, it's the 29th. Global box office could take a multi-billion-dollar hit. Yep, people aren't going to go to theaters in China, that's for sure. I went and saw Just Mercy 2 days ago, so I don't think Americans are going to stop going to see movies. There are a number of people there. Sonny Bunch will be along. Can I pause for a moment and tell you that SusanCollins.com is where you ought to go. Susan Collins is my new hero. And if I were not an NBC consultant, analyst, and a Washington Post contributing consultant, I can't contribute to campaigns. I can't appear at fundraisers. Those are the rules of the road. I'd be giving her money. I think the fetching Mrs. Hewitt will be giving her money today. She's not bound by my rules. She's been receiving so much hate from the left. She voted for Brett Kavanaugh, and now she's been fair in the impeachment trial, which will be over today. Thanks to Lamar Alexander, it's impossible to call witnesses. That means they'll move. They had final arguments last night. They almost had, it's just so crazy. Nancy Pelosi has given up. I'll come back to Susan Collins in a second. Nancy Pelosi has given up. And so she's got her new line down, cut number 10.
Well, he will not be acquitted. You cannot be acquitted if you don't have a trial. And you don't have a trial if you don't have witnesses and documentation and that. I would hope that the senators, if it comes to a tie or if there's a question of hearing testimony or receiving documents, would leave it up.
Can we say poor loser? Is there some way to play?
Oh, I'll play your game, you rogue.
I am telling you, you are the worst example for American youngsters watching. You got beat, Nancy Pelosi, and you come back with me. That's what that is. It's just me. But that's not as bad as the vile hatred flowing down on Susan Collins. Today's Wall Street Journal has an editorial. Verbal abuse sometimes as a way of stiffening the spine, the journal begins. That seems to be the case for Senator Susan Collins, the moderate Republican from Maine. And I'm on right now in Portland and other places in Maine. So I love your senator. Bravo, Susan Collins. I go up there a lot. I always tell people, buy sea bags. I tell people, eat lobster, do whatever. Get to Maine. You'll love Maine.